So now we're gonna work on our raspberry souffle with Cointreau cream. Now that Cointreau cream is just simply cold whipped cream or cold heavy cream whipped with sugar and a little bit of Cointreau, which is again just orange liqueur. We're just gonna spoon that right over the top. But when we're focusing on this raspberry souffle, this one philosophically is a little bit different than our chocolate souffle. That one's all about the whole egg, all about creating something that's really rich. This one is about highlighting, a really refreshing sort of summery flavor of pureed raspberries. Now, all of the egginess that comes from an egg, that sulfuric flavor, lives in the yolk. And that balances really well with savory dishes. It balances really well with chocolate and vanilla. It doesn't do great with raspberries. So this souffle is actually gonna be yolkless. And so we wanna show you how to sort of manipulate the raspberries in a way that sort of makes it seem like we have a yolk in there, structurally speaking. So we're gonna take this raspberry puree, which was, by the way, just 12 ounces of frozen raspberries, defrosted, blended, and strained to get those little seeds out. And then it's ready to go. With that said, if you have another favorite frozen fruit, it's all about just the volume by weight. So you want to use frozen strawberries and make a strawberry souffle, you totally can. So this is going into just a small non-stick skillet. To that, we're gonna add some cornstarch. This is what, structurally speaking, is replacing our egg yolk. As that boils, once it reaches boiling point, it thickens it as if we had, baked egg yolk in there. To that, we're gonna add about 4 tablespoons of granulated sugar. We're gonna reserve the other 3 tablespoons for our egg whites. And then we're just gonna turn this on and start whisking. Now, in terms of the temperature on your stove, it can increase with your comfort zone, right? So if you've made this before, you can have it on a pretty high heat and just whisk a little bit faster. If you're not sure when it's gonna come to a boil, keep the heat a little bit lower and just whisk it a little bit more slowly. Again, cornstarch reacts at boiling point, so this will look not thick at all until it comes to a boil, and all of a sudden it will be very thick. So you wanna keep an eye on it, just whisking it constantly. And you wanna use a whisk to break up that cornstarch so that you don't get lumps. So we're just gonna continue to monitor this until the whole thing comes to a boil. And then as soon as it does, we're gonna transfer that to a clean room temperature bowl to help it cool off a little bit. And then we'll move on to our egg whites. All right, so now we can see it coming to a boil here and thickening up. It's boiling around the edges. We want to see that throughout the entire pan so that we know that we've activated all of the cornstarch, as it will not get back up to boiling point once it goes in the oven. Okay, so if you can see that, these big bubbles coming up in the center, right? That tells us that this is nice and thick and dense. As it cools, it's gonna get even thicker, which is exactly what we want, because again, we need that structure that we're losing by taking out the egg yolk. So that's ready to go. I'm gonna turn off our heat. We're gonna transfer this to a clean bowl. We're gonna leave the spatula in there, so we wanna be able to stir it every once in a while to help bring that temperature down. Now, for a little bit of extra flavor, we're gonna add some vanilla bean paste. And the zest of a lemon. So, just gonna hold this microplane right over the top, scrape, and rotate. We don't want to go 2 times in the same spot, or else it tends to get bitter. We get down into that pith. So this just brightens it up a little bit. All right, that's about a teaspoon. That's a perfect amount. We're again just gonna stir this together, get it all combined. That is our raspberry souffle base. You can make this quite literally a day ahead of time. Once you assemble it though, this is not the type of souffle that you can totally assemble and make ahead of time. This part, you can. Once you whip the egg whites and fold it in, it's gotta go right into the oven. So, sliding on over to our egg whites. In the last recipe, we whipped this in a stand mixer. But have you know, soufflés have been around for longer than electricity, so you didn't always need a stand mixer for this. You could just use a little bit of elbow grease. So I want to show you how you can do this and the fact that you can do this. We've got some room temperature egg whites. If they're room temperature, they'll whip a little bit faster. Again, we have a balloon whisk, one that's designed to incorporate air. And we're going to start by just simply agitating the egg whites. We just want to break them apart. Again, we have 4 in here, and we want it to almost feel like one big one. Going side to side while rotating the bowl will allow me to go a little bit faster with a little bit less effort. At this point now, it almost feels like I'm whisking water because I've started to break all of the bonds between the 4 different whites. Now they've loosened up and they're coming together. So I'm just going side to side, just like that, while rotating the bowl to make sure I get in there. I don't want to use up all my energy at this stage. At this point, I'm just trying to aerate them a little bit. Then, as soon as I'm ready, I'm going to increase my speed and rotate the bowl. What you don't really ever have to do is tilt the bowl and go sideways. People love to do this. Not a lot of value in it if you're just going side to side and rotating the bowl. You want to be able to get yourself into a rhythm. So the fewest steps possible. And just like with our chocolate souffle, when these reach soft peaks, we're going to start adding the rest of our sugar in a little bit at a time. All right, so at this point, it's just starting to cling to the whisk, which again means we're pretty close to a soft peak. All right, so there we have our soft peaks. It's just clinging to the whisk, but only barely. And that peak is sort of sitting sideways, starting to droop down just a little bit. Now it's ready for our sugar. Again, I'm just reining it in while whisking. And I will occasionally, because I'm doing it by hand, have to stop and rotate my bowl as I do that, just to make sure the sugar gets completely incorporated in. All right, so that is really close to a medium peak. So now I'm going to be really careful with the rest of my sugar. I don't want to actually be beating it too quickly while I add this. So I want to still give my egg whites room to grow in the oven. All right, so all the sugar is in. Now I'm going to go back into it, high speed, just until the yolk or the whites start to get a little bit of a sheen to them. I want them to almost look shiny like marshmallow. All right, so there we have it. Hand-whipped egg whites. Perfect medium peak. See how it's level, straight across. Now it's ready for me to fold my raspberry puree in. So before we add that raspberry puree, or before we add it to the raspberry puree, you again want to make sure that this is cooled down enough. So we're just going to go in, give it a taste, just make sure it's not hot. That's perfect. It's room temperature, which is not enough to collapse our egg whites. So just like with our chocolate souffle, we have to lighten this up a little bit. So just big scoop of our egg whites, stirred in, just to lighten it up. And as that white mixes with this deep red raspberry, you get this beautiful sort of bright pink souffle. All right, so that's mixed together nicely. Now we start folding. Again, about 3 additions. Rotating towards myself while scooping under and over until we don't see any streaks of white. That's our cue that we can add the next addition of egg whites. All right, so we're getting to the last couple of turns, and you can see how light that is, right? So it's really fluffy, like this raspberry mousse almost. And so that's ready for our ramekins, but again, you wanna be ready, you wanna be doing this, if it's at the end of dinner, you kinda wanna make this after dinner. You're gonna make it, put it into your ramekins, and bake right away. We don't wanna give those whites a chance to collapse. So we prepared our ramekins the exact same way. We have those buttered and sugared in the refrigerator. And we're just gonna bring the ramekin to the souffle. Just drop that in. You see this is a lot firmer than our chocolate souffle, so you can almost scoop it in. Don't even necessarily need a ladle. All right, so we go right up to the edge. You can even smooth it out a bit. And then on to the next one. All right, and there we have it. These are gonna go in our oven, 375, 10 to 12 minutes, and they are perfect and ready to serve with our Cointreau whipped cream. So our raspberry souffle goes in the oven. About 5 minutes in, we can see the top is set, almost turning golden brown, and we see that it's starting to come out the side of the ramekin. It's not quite there yet, so we're gonna keep our oven door closed, check it in a few minutes. All right, our raspberry soufflés look perfect now. They've risen all the way out of the ramekin. The top is a nice, light golden brown. We can see that it's cooked through. Still has a little bit of a shake to it. These are ready. All right, so there we have it. Dramatically risen raspberry soufflés. Again, you can see where it's risen up the side. You can see where the inside of the souffle, where it was touching the side of the ramekin, has risen above it. The top is golden brown. If we shake this pan, we see them move a little bit, but they're not loose, they're not liquid, right? And so with desserts, I love the play of hot and cold, right? If this is hot, I wanna garnish it with something cold. So we've got, again, our Cointreau whipped cream. So heavy cream, sugar, Cointreau. And we're just gonna put a nice little elegant quenelle, which means almost this little football shape on the top. Now, traditionally, when chefs use this, they take 2 spoons and they go back and forth like that. And it's a quenelle, but it's not, in my opinion, as beautiful as it could be. So, what I like to do is take some really hot water, lift that out, and I'm gonna go along the side, and I'm gonna swoop back so it's nice and smooth. And we just lay that right on top of our souffle. Gonna finish these up, and then dessert is served. Master the egg and master your cooking in my Craftsy class. Enroll now.
Enroll today on Craftsy. Learn it, make it.